And away we go into the stratosphere known as the interwebs. This is Creators Roundtable. We're going to be talking about community and how the comic book industry is not a community. It is an industry. And I got some amazing people there ready to go on the panel. So we're going to start introducing them. We're going to go around the room. Randy, start us off.
Hey, everybody. I'm Randy Zimmerman. I've been doing comics and alternative comics for many, many decades, actually. Arrow Comics, Massive Comics, Weevy Comics are all comics that I printed under. Last 10 years, I've been doing a comics newspaper called Flint Comics that I've been circulating in my local area. Went through 100 issues. It was advertiser supported, and I almost have a copy here readily available. That looks like that. That folds out. Lots of comic strips and comic articles in it anyway. Been in comics for many, many years. I've done everything in the alternative and independent market that you can imagine, including freelance work and a lot of advertising work lately, of which I have won a few awards for doing sequential artwork for advertising clients. So I also do the Zim Geek channel here on YouTube.
Hi, I'm Brian K. Morris, independent publisher, freelance hybrid author, award-winning playwright, former mortician's assistant. Under the banner of Rising Tide Publications, we write, we publish comics. I'm a former retailer also. Plus, every day at 10 a.m. Eastern, I have my own Facebook Live show, now also on OnCon and YouTube. Called Nevermind the Furthermore, where you talk, you promote, we have a conversation. Then on Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, Clever Title Pending, where we talk about creativity and all the business that goes on behind it. Plus, we have interviews, and we love to have you share and ask some questions. Interrogate our guests brutally. That's what they're there for. Anyway, Meredith?
Hi, guys. I'm Meredith Loughran. I am the Comic Noob, if you are part of the Comic Book Advocating Network, and I'm going to be sharing my story as I have a 1-year deadline to get from zero to creating a comic book, and I hope that you guys will follow along that journey. I am also a contributor at Geek Insider. I'm getting lessons from Brian K. Morris here with this advertising stuff. So Geek Insider, I am a writer, live streamer, a contributor at Geek Insider. I helped to organize the Geek Out Virtual Con, which was a week before CyberCon, by the way. It's the forgotten one. But I don't take that personally. I don't take it personally. And so, just getting more out there, networking, having a good time, doing a lot of creative stuff. And I'm really happy to be here. Who am I passing this to? Varian?
Is it me? Do I get the ball now? Sweet. Hello, everybody. My name is Varian Grant. I was born at age 0, and I've survived as a living organism on this planet until present day. I am a publisher, owner of Indie Vault Media, and I'm here today to burst bubbles, explain to you all why this is not a community. I'm the bad guy today. I'm the heel.
What is up, guys? This is
Wendy Gale.
And she.
I've edited a few comic books. I'm writing my own comic book. I have a short that'll be coming out in the next Advocator anthology. I've done mostly prose writing up until the last couple of years. I'm also a co-founder of Bonfire Press Publishing. And I've done some work with Chuck on Belial. Yeah.
And I'm Chuck. I'm a writer and editor. She said Belial. She said Bonfire. She said a lot of those important things. What she didn't mention, because that's all me, is Chuck's Raw Reviews, which is my indie comic review site on YouTube. And, of course, you can also find it here on Comic Book Advocates. And I also run with my good buddy, Eric Cockrell. I run a podcast called Essence House.
All right, and I am the comics creative devil known as an advocate for comic books because I love comic books, and we're going to be talking about industry versus community. And the first thing I want to say right now is what you're seeing on your screen right now. This is a community. This is people who have come together. We support each other. We're there for each other during this pandemic. We've talked to each other. We've supported each other with shows. This is a community I love. They're responsible in part for any success I'm having right now because we ride on each other's shoulders. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you all. I appreciate every one of you for being in my community. You are the most amazing people, and I'm so happy to have you in my community. But I understand it is my community. These are all of us coming together as a group. It is a local community. Comics are not a community. A community is something where people band together and they create something. An industry is a machine. It has parts. It has moving parts. And I'm going to let Randy, because this is Randy's idea, really, that I'm just now giving PR to and getting it out to the world to see. So, Randy, explain to them, like you explained to me, why this is an industry and not a community.
Put me on the spot. Thank you so much.
It
is an industry because it's a business. We're here to make money. We're here to entertain. We're here to help people lose themselves for a few minutes and get away from their life, their existence, by making them smile or making them lose themselves in our work. We're here to, we're an art form as much as an industry, and that we combine words and pictures and make magic and help people get through life, really. Is there any more explanation than that? Am I missing something? Or
well, let's open that up. Does anyone have any?
Wide?
Does anyone have any comments about that? About comics being a community versus an industry? I'd like to hear it.
Lots.
Right.
For me, mine is my reasoning behind why it's an industry and not a community. I get what you said, Rob. This is your community. And I even will go as far as saying that I can understand that there is a community aspect to what we do. But the reason why I think it's an industry, like Randy says, that some of us are here to make money. I don't mind putting out good, but I mean, obviously I want to put out great books people enjoy. I have to be compensated for that though. And the thing is, some people use the term community so that they can belong and have a say and even almost a foothold or control without actually having to put anything out to actually invest. Remember, you could be a member of a community just by, living close by or being involved, be a part of the industry. You have to manifest some type of, property. So you're going to have to come up with an IP. You're going to have to, travel. And I think that some people, there are people who, for some reason, hold sway in this business and they don't do anything. I hate to say it, but it's true. Everyone,
I can agree with that.
Yeah. Chuck.
I actually disagree.
Okay.
I believe in both. Let's do it, buddy. You know what? I think that Varian actually came upon some really good ideas. I think it can be both, and he's not wrong when he says, you know what, you should have to actually do something in order to be a part of the community. I fully agree with that. The thing is that we give power to people. So if someone has that power and they just come in and they start saying stuff and we allow them that was on us. That was our mistake. So, if someone's coming in and they're all like, no, this is how it needs to be done. It's like, you haven't done anything. We need to step up as that community, as that industry. And we have to say, no, you don't even know what the hell you're talking about. Why are you in this discussion right now? Put out a book, work on something, do something, so then your opinion is actually viable. So, no, I don't fully agree with it. I do agree that it is number one and above and beyond, for the most part, an industry. But the thing is, there's a lot of comic creators out there who aren't doing it for the industry. They're doing it for the hobby. They're doing it for the love. And I think in order to allow them in and not have to, keep a gate up there, I think community is a part of what we are. And so the thing is, I was saying this, we were on an interview recently, a bunch of us, I know Rob was there, and I said, welcome to my little town. It's called Canyon Lake, and there's a bunch of different people in this area who all want the best for it, but we all want different things. And that really is what the industry is about. It's what the community is about, and it's about us too. Because you got people like, some of us saying, well, this is what's best, and then other groups saying, no, this is what we should be doing. And so that really is, in a lot of ways, a community.
Anyone else have comments? Because I do have follow-ups, but I wanna let anyone else. Brian, Meredith, you've both been quiet.
For once, right? But no, I agree pretty much with everything that's been said. And Chuck's comments about and Varian's comments about people that claim to be part of the community but don't contribute to it by adding content to it. This is something that strikes really close to home for me, because in the years that I've been doing this full time, for 8 years now, I run into a lot of people who seem to think that they can decide how our community, or even larger our industry, can conduct its business when they do nothing to enhance it, add to it, make it a better place. And that kind of grinds my gears at times too. And so I'm would say, if you can be part of the community, you can support, you can comment, you can bring more attention to what other people are doing. But for the most part, this is an industry, this is a business, and at the end of the day, product has to be put out. And I think that's an important part of the whole differentiation, that we can all feel like we're part of the community. But, like Chuck said, we all have different ideas on how it should be run. And I think everyone needs a better awareness of where they stand in the firmament, and how to move from one area of the industry to another. And the opportunities are all there, is the thing. Meredith, what do you think?
I have opinions, actually. I don't think that, I definitely see it as a business. There's definitely a business aspect to it. I am not there yet. Again, comic noob, I'm starting from scratch, but it doesn't mean that I have no experience in small business or creating things. It's just trying to put it into perspective and finding the direct. So for me, I don't think that business is necessarily exclusive of community and vice versa. Basically looking at myself as the little fish, and I'm jumping into all of these different little fish bowls. Now I can bring value, and I can bring knowledge to whatever extent I can. I can be helpful. I can be, for some, a voice, where I can use my networking and advocating for that, and not necessarily know what the hell I'm advocating for. But if I see something that I like, I'm going to hit the share button. That makes me part of the community, as far as I'm concerned. And, going with that fishbowl analogy, I can either grow in the aquarium, I can be eaten alive, I can be booted, so it really, it's all of these different communities. And so you have a greater community, and then you kind of go into these more niche areas. And I think that's okay. In a way, it's kind of like potato. What is your perspective? What do you think of it when you say the word community? And I'll throw it back to Rob.
All right. So here are my thoughts. I think you all have tackled it and really looked at it from your own perspectives. Here's how I look at it. Randy first said this to me, and I had felt something in my gut, and I didn't know how to express it. When Randy said those words, "This isn't a fucking community, this is a goddamn industry," it rang in my ears, and I was like, he's right. That's what I've been trying to put my finger on. So I went to work at disproving it, because if I'm going to feel some way, the first thing I want to do is I'm going to step out and say there's no community, so everyone's going to be pissed because it's community. So I know I'm going to make some people angry. I want to be able to debunk it. So I sat down and I wrote down a list, and this is what I came up with, and this is what I think's missing. And here's the example. So we have Comicsgate. If we're a community, why do we have Comicsgate? Because another part of the community decided that if you believed a certain way, you couldn't be part of the community anymore, proving that there was never a community for creators. There was just a group that decided that this was the rules for this group, and this was the rules for this group. And I'd always equated our industry as wrestling back in the 80s, where there were these different regions with different rules on how wrestling was done, and different finishing moves and different promotional stuff. Now the industry itself would be WWE, and WWE brought everything together. WWE is based upon stock shares and fans and people making money, the company money, by doing these things. So ultimately, why it's an industry, Chuck had said something about the person who's doing this as a hobby. Whether he likes it or not, he stepped into an industry. He might not make money in the industry. He might never do anything in the industry that has anything to do with the industry. And I totally respect his right to be here. But at the end of the day, he's still part of an industry. And how do we know this? Because if he doesn't put out a quality product, a lot of people will turn around and say, you're making the wrong choices. This is why. This is what it is, because we have an industry standard. That standard has been dictated to us by fans. We are forgetting the most important part for the last couple of years of comics, the fans. And that's where Comicsgate comes from. Comicsgate came from these fans who were pissed off. Whether you like it or not, it's true. They were pissed off. And they were a community of fans, not every fan, but enough of a big enough community that they're now empowering a part of the industry that's offshoot. And remember the WWE? There's a reason I use that, because WWE became this big giant thing. It was the only real thing in wrestling. People got tired of that product. So that industry broke up and there were other parts of the industry and it stopped being a monopoly. So I think that's where the community comes into play. We all play a part towards the industry, absolutely. And there are bubble communities. I completely agree with that. Comicsgate proves that. You know, the independent creators prove that that's a community within itself, absolutely. And within that community, there are pockets of smaller communities. So I think underneath the umbrella, it's a community. But if you're not taking the machine, the industry seriously, you're never going to get to where you want to be. And getting higher and higher and higher. And there's a moment where you have to realize this is an industry. This is something there's a certain way that I have to conduct myself to get higher up. And I think that once you stop getting to the lower end, you start learning to get to the higher end. You start seeing that. And you start seeing the business model. And you start realizing that things fluctuate. And so it's not that anyone's wrong. It's just if you don't see the bigger picture, you get lost in the bottom of the industry. It's like being the clerk at the store who goes, well, the CEO makes millions of dollars, so I shouldn't have to work so hard. Not realizing how much effort it takes to become a CEO. Not realizing those aspects that went into the guy who created the business. And he's like, we all go, look at how much the Amazon guy makes. Look at how much we should take his money away. What we forget to look at is how much work he put into it, the office that he had, and the fact that he built an industry that is now different. Now, I'm sure a lot of people disagree. We're going to start with Chuck, so I'm sure Chuck's going to have some comments, judging by his facial structure. So go ahead, Chuck.
Well, actually, Wendy didn't get to speak, so I'm going to step aside, and if she has anything to say first, I'm going to let her go ahead.
Well, I don't have a lot to add to what everybody else said. I agree with most of everything. My thought was that, industry and community are two separate entities, but at the same time, industry is supported by communities, and every industry has multiple communities that hold it up, that contribute to it, and depending on what community you're a part of, you contribute different things to the whole. And but I don't think that any business can run without some sort of community support. They may not be as successful. I think if they have people behind them, they have communities behind them that support their business by spreading the word that this is a business worth supporting and whatnot, and they bring more revenue to them. That's the benefit of having a community that helps hold you up. And I think for the comic industry, if we didn't have all these little smaller communities, where some people are just getting started, everybody started somewhere, and I'm sure it's kind of cool to think that, or maybe even a little weird to think that people like Mark Silvestri and Michael Turner and Will Spartaccio and these people that kind of went off and created their own thing together, they had to have some kind of little community, like they got together and they came up with this idea. I'm sure that they had friends and stuff that they talked to about it and support. You don't think they did? Okay, well, that's neither here nor there. It's just an example, but you just don't know what I guess what I'm trying to point out is that you just don't know what can happen when something grows out of the community and into the larger community, or it starts to contribute to that industry that they've supported for however long. And so there's a huge benefit to having community, but at the same time, along with the argument, they are separate.
Mm-hmm. I'm just going to piggyback off of that
And
for a
Rob's
second.
out of his chair.
Yeah.
Don't ask. You don't want to know.
He's falling.
Did you? First off,
And he can't get up.
all right. Wendy, that was beautiful. I have to say, but and you
Yeah.
took all the aspects of it, but I still think that Chuck has to disagree with me. So go ahead, Chuck.
Yes, sir. So personally for me, I still think it's both, and I don't think you've swayed me or changed my mind. The thing about it is that you spoke about the industry and about WWE and whatnot, but the thing, and then you also talked about the hobbyists and how, whether they like it or not, they're a part of an industry. Yes, they are, but that doesn't mean they're aiming to go up. That doesn't mean they have. A lot of these guys I've spoken to, it's like, hey man, are you ever, do you ever want to get into, say, working for Marvel or something? They're like, well, I'd work for Marvel, but I'd never give up my day job. I make way more money than a comic creator does. So I love making comics, but I'd still keep doing my day job. And it's like, you know what? Yeah, like these hobbyists, they're still not trying to go above that because there is no above it. So I think that people who say, hey, this is an industry, and you people who are in the community, you need to understand that it's an industry. I think that people who say it's an industry also have to understand that it is also a community. Because the thing about community is that industry, you walk in, you do your shit, and you make your money. But in a community watches your shit. And a community will call yourself out. And just because some people have gotten away with some shit in a way, the community has still stepped up in another way and called them out. So that doesn't mean the community, because I know you're going to mention Dirk. I know the fucking masked motherfucker is going to show up. But the community has spoken to him, because there's a good section of that community that does not. You can shake your head all you want, but I see massive amounts of people who are saying, fuck him. Just because SourcePoint is still with him and still supporting him does not mean that the community does.
I just want to say that this program.
Hold on, I just want all the hate mail to go to Chuck. I was not going to bring up Dirk, actually. SourcePoint. I'm serious, Chuck. I don't lie to you, do I? I was never going to bring him up today because I'm done with it. I washed my hands with it. Like, I didn't want his ugly name in here.
This program isn't rated MSLV, TVM.
Is it?
No, but
There's no rating up there.
I do want to say one thing, though. This is a serious point to Chuck, and I think he's misunderstanding me, so I want to make this crystal clear. I agree there are communities, but comics aren't a community. What you're missing is the singularity. We're not saying there aren't communities. We're saying there's not one community like it's sold to people. Absolutely smaller communities, yes, but not, and you have to admit this, the hobbyist is never going to get along with the pro who hates the hobbyist because he thinks it's knocking what he's doing because he's just doing it for fun. Those are two very separate communities, and they fall in an industry. You understand what I'm saying? I'm not saying there aren't communities, because we have a community right here. And independent creators have a community. I'm sure Image has a community of creators being under that publishing brand. And former creators from Marvel who have been fired, I'm sure, form a community. But we are not all in that same community.
I think you don't quite understand what a community is. A community is not a group of people all doing the same thing.
Okay,
because communities often don't work that way.
Well, I'm going to look up the word.
Yeah, communities, they all focus on the same thing. That focus is comics. How they focus on it is going to be different. Now, are there certainly smaller communities within it? I absolutely agree with that. But there is still an overall community of comics where you can have a hobbyist sitting at a table next to a guy who has worked for DC. That was my first convention. I was technically at that time still kind of a hobbyist, still had a job, and right next to me was a creator from DC. There's 17 different versions of community. You want to go through all of them? Because we'll both be right.
That's what I was going to say. I think we're blending the definitions of community and industry.
Well, as long as we have Marxism, they'll keep they'll keep
Blurring it.
adding definitions.
No, because he's right. Maybe I'm getting the word wrong, and that's possible. So I always like to look up the word when someone challenges me. It's not a dig to Chuck. It's like, okay, well, let's really take it, because to my idea, it's people with similar ideas.
I do like the one that says joint ownership of liability.
Yeah.
I do like that one.
Let's pick the one we all like together.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I think this is really what most people call a community right now. Like you brought up Dirk, so I'll put out Dirk there just because his name got brought up. He has a community that are like fucking, to quote Randy, they're like fucking cultists. They just follow him. And that's how Randy sees that sometimes, right, Randy? Am I wrong?
I'm not. I'll let you know when you're wrong.
All right.
All I can do is shake my head.
Yeah, and then, but what it doesn't say is one idea gathering people. I don't see that, Chuck, in the comments, in the definition. I don't see that.
But that one you have is very good. A feeling of fellowship with others as a result of sharing common attitudes, interests, and goals. This is an interest.
Yeah, but we have different goals. You just pointed that out. The comment, doesn't that mean they all go together, or am I wrong?
Oh,
Stop me if I'm wrong.
I'm sorry, I forget names, but the lady that was sitting next to Chuck,
Wendy.
Wendy, I think Wendy nailed it 100%. There's all sorts of different communities inside of this industry.
Yeah, because I mean, if you want to think of it in terms of a community, a neighborhood, my concerns on my block aren't necessarily the person who lives behind me. They have different, issues. And so, and maybe about 4 blocks over, there's someone else who has, another set of issues. I did want to say to Rob. Oh, Rob, I'm sorry, Randy. What do you say?
No. Go ahead. I was just going to make a snide remark about how if community is your local area, then these other little kids better stay the hell off of my lawn.
Well, the thing is, wrestling, because Rob brought up wrestling and the comic industry they have a lot of interesting parallels. When I was 19, I had this ridiculous notion that I was going to be a WWE wrestler, and I went to wrestling school, TPW. I trained with Zach Gowen, and it was rough. It was rough, and I would drive sometimes 80, 90 miles for $20 and a hot dog, and go in there and get my butt kicked. Now I drive 500 miles to go sell a comic to make $20. No hot dogs either. But there was something interesting Batista said, who's a wrestler. He said he stopped liking the sport, and I believe it was Batista. I could be wrong, but I believe it was him. He says there's too many fans in the locker room.
Yep, that's Batista.
And
well, the smaller guys, the underground guys who showed up.
And I think with comics, and I've said this before on my show, and people have wrote in and they've asked me and Randy if I think it was El Nolan who wrote in and said that he just felt that it was just too easy to get into comics. It was, you got crowdfunding now, you got print on demand, whereas from what I'm understanding, and I was a babe in the 80s, in the 90s, but you had to go print 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 copies of a book, which required a substantial financial investment. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just taking $100 or $200 and going to get 50, 60 copies and going at your local con and setting up. You had to actually maybe drop 1,000 or 2, not to mention a table. So now it's even easier to get in. Some people who maybe they don't really like the industry as much as they would have. I mean, it's great to see all these different voices in, but sometimes you're gonna get with that problems. I would relate it to something else, but I don't want Rob to get more hate mail. But
speaking of hate mail, let me interrupt. Let me get my own hate mail right here, and I'm going to open the door because I think this might be the door you're trying to go through. Okay, we're a community. We want to support each other, Chuck, right? That's the whole goal. The community could we agree that a community should have the mutual goal of loving comics, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So then how come people kneecap comics when they make huge steps forward? Because of something that they decide that they want to make political. Perfect example. Walmart. Me and Brian talked about this. Walmart now offers comics from creators that are not established with the giant companies. The door is being literally cracked open. They're doing a Varian Grant thing where they're kicking this gate open, and people are shitting on it. because they're not willing to support it. Do you understand? Every time you buy a comic, I don't care if you go home and burn it, but if you buy that comic, you're showing to Walmart, to Target, to everywhere else that there is a fan base out there. That's a vote to do this bigger. That's a way for us local creators to go to Walmart, like local garden farmers did back in the day, and said, hey, I have local produce. Would you like to buy it? And they were like, yes, we would, because they were there and open to the idea. Because there was one produce guy who went to Walmart, knocked on the door and said, hey, look, I can get this to you cheaper. And he opened the door for everyone else. So if this is a community, why aren't we rallying behind books that you can get at Walmart right now? Why aren't we buying a copy of every comic book? Not because we want to support them, not because we believe in their politics, not because we think it's the best thing in the world, but because we realize that helps the community. Why aren't we doing that if the community matters?
But there's a difference.
Rob, can you hand those books down here?
Community and fans. Fans are not community. They're
Can you
well,
drop-
they're a community
can you drop
within
that?
themselves,
Thanks.
but they don't represent the ideas of what we're talking about.
I'm not here. I know Wendy's talking, but
Yeah.
I can't hear.
Yeah, Wendy, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Wendy.
Be loud.
Yeah.
Oh, they were
Oh.
talking.
Okay, I was just saying that fans and community are different. Like fans have their own community, but what we're talking about, I don't think fans are included in that idea of community that we're speaking of.
Oh, no, I'm
We're
talking
speaking
about
of
the
the
community.
community of support, and the people that create. Fans are dictating what they want to see in the stores and whatnot. And if they're not going to buy it, the stores they're not going to keep it.
No, but
So,
when I'll go.
no, that's it.
Oh, you kicked out for a second. I thought you were done, and I heard your voice again. What I'm trying to say is, it's creators telling fans not to support this. They are literally telling their fan base, which is part of a community, don't support this. If you do, you're a Nazi. I have seen people post that. This is kneecapping a golden opportunity, because now these fans are like, wait a minute, what's wrong? And yes, there is a book that has controversy because of its fulfillment on a crowdfunding. I absolutely agree. Let me tell you the truth. Chuck brought this up. If Dirk Manning got into Target tomorrow, I would buy his book at Target. I would do it not because I wanted to support Dirk, but I wanted to support our community, and I want our industry to get into Target. I would go home and use it as toilet paper, but I would still buy the book because it matters to the community. It matters to this community that's in this stream right now, because I do love the community I am part of. Not in 1 second do I not think I'm not part of many communities that are amazing and I want to support every day. But I also understand community blinds people from the truth. Comicsgate exposed that, because when you start have to being a certain way, then it's not just about our love of comics, but it's about this and it's about that. And you have to wear this and you have to talk this way and you have to say these things. And to me, that's not community. Community is a neighborhood. You all live on the same street. You're all a community. You all get together and you do what you got to do to protect the community. We stopped doing that. That's why it's just an industry now. And there are small pockets of community. And of course, there's no wrong answer here. I don't care how you frame it. Just respect it. If we all could agree to respect it, and I know Chuck does that, I know Wendy does that, I know Brian does that, whichever ways these go, Randy and Varian do it with IndieVolt. Meredith is coming up and being one of the loudest supporters, I'll get the hand right, being one of the loudest supporters of comics right now. Thank you, Brian. So it's all about love. It's about opening your heart and stopping to draw lines. Wendy, I said Wendy.
No, it's one past.
Oh, pass. Thank you. This is about passion, because Randy, when he's creating, that's his heart on the paper, and we're tired of people telling us how we can create. If there's one thing that comic books have always done, it's rallied against the social norms that tell us who we have to be. And suddenly our industry got taken over by people telling us how to be. And that's where the cracks came from. That's where comics came from, because we had our creative freedoms taken from us. And I'm done. I'm off my soapbox. Anyone can take over. Who wants it? Chuck? Brian?
I did have a quick question. Is this on
I
YouTube
do for a
as
minute. I do for a minute.
What was the quick question, Meredith?
well? Was this on YouTube as well?
Yes.
Could you send me the link?
Yes. Meredith, go ahead.
I wanted to speak about that as far as motivation. So as a creator, we have the motivation as to whether or not we want to turn it into a business and eventually make it into a moneymaker. That's a goal. That's definitely a goal. But then you have the people who are hobbyists and they're doing it for the love of the art and just saying, hey, I have a product out there, and they build their own communities and people who support them. Then you have the people who make a comic book and then they get into Walmart, and you have all of these people who are going to shout, oh, you're such a sellout because you're in, big corp now, and you kneel to your masters. And it's such a terrible perception for them. And then you have the creators who basically fund through Kickstarters, and they're putting their hearts into this and trying to make money for whatever reason that they're launching their Kickstarter. And so they're gonna shit on the ones who actually had that connection to Walmart. And I think it's sour grapes. And it's true that as an individual who has these creations, you're together, your team, and it is a business. There's no doubt about that. Again, it speaks to motivation. So for me, like if I want to create my first comic, I'm doing this more out of hobby, probably because it's going to be a piece of crap. I hope not with everybody's help, but it probably will be, and it's going to be the first time out. I'm an unknown, so the work that I'm doing right now is to build the community, because you can have the best business plan, you can have the best piece of art. It doesn't matter if nobody knows about it. If you're not building that community in conjunction with the project that you're doing, nobody's going to know who you are. You're not going to sell anything. And that's not a really good business model. So you have to come together as far as that. It is independent, but the person who's putting the product out there, they really have to do a little self-reflection and figure out whether or not they want to do this as a living or if they want to do it as a hobby.
Also, I'd like to speak to the idea of the factions that we have now. We've had these factions for decades, but back in the days when I was running comic shops, it was the Marvel zombies versus the DC people, and both of them would only get together when they looked at people like First Comics or Comico or whomever that were then the independent crowd. We've always had this sort of thing. So I don't know that it would matter who got that real estate inside the Walmart, whether it was, the Comicsgate side or the SJW side. Somebody will be unhappy, but we all have to look at it that we want to grow the business, that we want to do the best work we can, regardless of where we stand, on the socio-political publishing side of comics. And, that's why I'm just too much of a centrist or whatever, but I've been buying comics at Walmart for a couple of years now. So I support, whoever can get us visible and getting people to understand. See, back when I was selling back issues, what the biggest question I ever got when I would go to like a mall or a flea market was, are they still making comic books?
Yeah.
That's the question we need to provide the answer to more often. And look at the kind of cool comics we have, and look at, or rather for this, I should be holding up, look at the cool comics we have, and encouraging people to one day, to do what they want to do, as far as, their creativity in comics goes, and try to do the best job they can. Just remember, it took Stan Lee 20 years to become Stan Lee. So.
Well, one thing I learned when I was doing the newspaper, we were moving 10,000 copies of a comics paper here in the just in the Genesee County area. And the local comic shops would all take out ads. And the longest established comic shop in the area started treating me really, really good. Whenever I walked through the door, they were one of my biggest supporters and were with me this whole time, because they told me 85%, they figured that 85% of the populace who were reading the paper, who were picking up the paper for free, had never bothered to walk into a comic shop. Who had walked in, and they could tell too when they did walk in, because their eyes would get big like a little kid and they'd stare around at the place because they'd never been, even though the comic shop had been there for close to 30 years and they passed by it every day, they didn't realize it was there until they saw it in the paper. So I'm not quite sure where I'm going with this point. I'm just backing up what you were saying, that there's so many people out there that, like with the Walmart deal, that are going to bump into comics for the first time in their adult life and go, "Oh, comics are still being produced. Oh, well, this is cool."
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
we
know,
live in a time where I'm sorry.
And there's no sense in trying to discourage that.
Yeah, we live in a time that's really unique because the Brettweisers, and this is one of the things that the naysayers, they're just incapable of it dawning on them. The Brettweisers proved that independent creators can get into the public market and be a player and take a part of the market share that probably those same naysayers just always kind of gave up. Well, it's still always going to be a two-party game with Marvel and DC, and if somebody wants a Dark Horse comic, they go into a local comic shop if they can find one.
Well,
But-
I'm sorry to cut you off, Eric. One of the big things you have to look at with the Breitweiser deal with Walmart's is that Walmart's has carried independently produced comics before. Gary Reed tried to get in with Caliber Press, with Gauntlet Press. There's another company that did Stormwatch. Robert Hickey come in right after that. But with Stormwatch, all of these books were in very small test areas.
Yeah.
And didn't go very far, probably because they didn't get the wide range or the wide reach or enough notoriety. It took Breitweiser's months, literally, of negotiating and dealing and hassling with the deal in order to get the lines and the I's dotted and the T's crossed. That's why that his crowd funded book is so late, is because it took him so long in order to get this set up. And this is the first time, really, that an independent book has gotten such a wide amount of exposure in the Walmarts. They're in 3,000 Walmarts.
And-
3,000 Walmarts now have a red pop-up display that have comics in it.
And we all have to get out there and buy them out. We need to show, if you want to talk about the community, we as a community need to show that, yes, we want more of this.
We as a community need to support the industry.
Yeah.
And helping that get more visible and helping sequential art become more visible in that way.
If the Brettweisers do well sales-wise, Marvel or Walmart will want more. Target will want to get on the action, and that opens more doors for all of us who are willing to step up and do the work. The big thing here is that the Brettweisers were willing to take the shot on the knee that Red Rooster not funding is going to give them, but they looked at the bigger picture. They knew that this was worth going for, and if he had backed off on it, he probably would have lost this opportunity for who knows how long, or it had been taken by somebody else. And those are the risks in business that we have to take. Yeah. And
another thing to point out, if you've seen that point of purchase display, there are places on that display for 6 books.
Yeah.
And he's only put out 4, so there's two more coming.
Yeah.
That are in the pipeline.
And if us as individual creators can start really treating this like a business and putting in that work, we can be there too, right next to them. There's no reason we can't.
Yeah. What I found interesting about the whole thing was that there are so many people, and this is maybe I've been told I was crazy before, even though my mother had me tested, and I don't think it's a joke or when I say that I live and eat and breathe this business, but if you go back and shameless plug, if you look at Indievolt, we were talking about this in September of last year, the Breitweisers deal, Allegiance Arts going to Walmart. There are people who are in the industry, okay, putting out books. They didn't know about it. They're shocked. They're walking into Walmart, seeing books, and they're going on Facebook, going ballistic. Has anyone seen these? What is this about? And it's like, wait a minute, you publish comics, you claim that you're a leader of the industry. You didn't know about this? What are you talking about? And then they're, oh my God, these books are great. Who are these guys? Can I get in touch with them?
Well, again, there's a example there of professional mushrooming and how the media totally ignored or pretty much ignored Breitweiser's announcements.
What's funny
that this was going to happen.
Funny to me is just like, yay, comics. And I found something funny. I seen it. I'll share it with you guys later. Another artist just said, hey, another person said, hey, I'm getting a cover by this artist. And I've seen it twice with these books and with this artist that were just hired. Hey, that guy's comics gay. And I've seen 2 people say, I don't care.
Hey, Varian.
Yeah.
Where did Wendy go, Chuck? I didn't even get to say happy birthday. I mean, happy Mother's Day.
Is it a birthday?
No, happy Mother's Day.
She's having a smoke. She didn't want to do it on camera.
Oh, well, being on this program, be talking to me, I can understand the frustration. It's fucking Rob and
Gotta put up with his shit again. I'm about to start, and I've never smoked in my damn life.
All right, what we didn't do, because things got a little heated and I wanted the natural conversation to keep going, we didn't introduce the dreaded Dinosaur Man.
Yeah.
Hey everybody, Eric Hodson, aka Dreaded Dinosaur Man, and I have a webtoon called Dreaded Dinosaur. Who you can go read the first 2 chapters there. I'll have a book launching probably this fall if I get all my other ducks in a row on Indiegogo. Finishing up Roddy Piper, the Kilted Avenger, a licensed property that will be for sale at Pro Wrestling Tees website, hopefully by the summer. We're finishing up on that, so excited to get started on a new project. And you can look me up erichodson.com and buy some prints and help me pay the rent.
Wait, you got Roddy Piper before John Crowther?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, he must be steaming. Good job. He doesn't get to have all of them. I like that.
He has that encyclopedia, but not with Piper. Not with Piper.
Yeah, it's totally signed off on the company. We went through my relationship with Pro Wrestling Tees, and he has a good relationship with Kitty, and this is something we worked out. And it's just been a long slog since it's been mostly me doing all the work. But we have a colorist now who's polishing up my flats and getting near completion now. So
congratulations, man.
Now, I do have some bad news, and this is going to probably really piss Randy off. So I apologize immediately for this. This is not meant to actually piss off Randy.
Let me tape it. Wait.
It is being taped. You're all good.
He loves it when I get triggered.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Can I be moved?
I mean, he's going to get mad for a good reason. So Walmart was supposed to do this thing where they were going to. I have to stop screen sharing for a second to bring up position. So it was supposed to be put in this red thing to show off the comics, and this is where it was in my local store. No associate knew about it. Everyone said that we weren't carrying it.
Uh-huh.
No one had any clue. They said, "Oh, we don't carry comics. We're not that type of store."
Sure.
Was literally said to me.
Uh-huh.
This was put with children's books.
Yeah.
This is, and I'm going to be writing a letter to Walmart corporate because the content within those books are not appropriate for children. And they mixed it in. They should have left it on the cap because that was part of the agreement, the licensing agreement, as far as I was made to understand, that they were supposed to stay in their actual display.
Yeah.
None of their associates knew about it. So for those watching, for wanting to support, and thank you for that, please search your Walmart. We have seen it now. Where have we seen it, Randy and Varian? You guys have been covering this too. The electronics, right?
Electronics section, the toys section, the magazine section.
Yep.
It's because to Walmart, and especially the Walmart managerial, it's a new animal. They don't know what it is.
And it's totally management because I'll tell you, Walmart will send out the email. I've worked as a manager,
and they sent all the racks out to them too because Brightwisers, just as it was happening, showed this stack of cardboard point of purchase displays. Mm-hmm. One of each was being shipped out to 3,000 different Walmarts.
Well, it's funny, that thing, it comes with the comics already in them. So all you have to do when you get those set tops is pop it up, fold the boxes down. They're already there.
Yeah, some manager was being lazy. Just put them up here or whatever. And those are ones that have the stupid stickers on them.
Even price.
So for collectors, it's like,
Yep. See, they don't know how to treat it because it's such an unusually new animal to them. What is this? Words and pictures. Oh, where do we put that? Oh, I guess it goes in the books or the magazine. Who knows where? So.
Yeah, it speaks to training too of the Walmart employees. When I used to work for Office Depot 25 years ago, and one of the things that we were trained with
and he's frozen.
Associates rather was we had some store, and we got tested every 90 days on that. And what this tells me is that Walmart doesn't exactly. Of course, I get they have a high turnover of employees, like a lot of retail outlets.
No, this was management. This is they were under.
Yeah, but the fact that nobody knew where that was.
Not
Management.
just that, but you have to consider
Yeah,
right
they
now
were training.
the times that we're in. Management is a lot more concerned about keeping people socially distanced than they are on what they're supposed to do with this funny book.
Right.
I'm
That's
from
true.
a-
You can't
it
get
could
sued
go
over the
anywhere.
funny book.
Yeah.
I'm from a retail background. There's no excuse for that because this was an arrangement, and I'm going to make it a big deal because this was an arrangement between companies. I don't.
Yeah.
At least if you're putting it up in the end cap and you had to move it for your store, that's one thing. They got rid of their end cap and they put it with children's books. That's demeaning to comic book creators.
Yep.
If you're a comic book creator and you're not seeing that and you're not pissed off, you're not getting it. They are telling us that we can only make comics for kids. That is how they looked at it. They didn't take us serious. This is why it's an industry, people.
That's been a prevailing stupidity throughout comics history. It's always been fighting against that. Same with
the
cartoons.
50s. Yeah.
Same with cartoons. All cartoons are for kids. Have you seen anime? That's a culture that gets it. Now I guarantee if the Brett Weisers could work out a deal to have these translated in Japan and get them in stores in Japan, Nelly.
Well, that doesn't help us here in America, so that doesn't work for me.
No, but it
I'm worried about
increases the demand on a product to
I get that,
exist
but
in the
we're
space.
respected in Japan. I don't care about Japan. I care that in my own home country, we
Right.
are looked down on. That is a problem to me. It is a problem that they took us out of our display because we're a community, and I'm standing by the community right now, just creators like Chuck said, or the industry, frame it how you want. I am pissed off that someone who is part of my industry/community has been disrespected in such a high regard. And that made me angry. And I saved it for this moment because I don't care if you don't like the fact that they're comics. Shut your mouth. Buy the goddamn book. Buy one if it really bothers you that much. But show this is a crack. This is like that ceiling for us that you're always hearing about with women. This is comic book ceilings right now. This is our way into Walmart in a serious fashion where it's just not Marvel and DC getting in. It could be all of us getting in, maybe locally at first. And then if we can prove our sales locally, we can get a national distribution. That's how this works. Watch Shark Tank for a week, somebody, please. Get to know what this is. This is a huge deal. And the fact that we are put on top of children's books, and not just children books, but young children. These books should not be in young children's hands. Not one of them should be in an age appropriate for all those books' hands. And then if you look at the very bottom, they're also doing a horrible. Like I'm going to rip them up in an email about actually how they did this end cap in general. This is a disgusting end cap of just absolutely horrible things. This book on the bottom should never be here.
That's
Well,
that's a
go
regional,
ahead, Randy. Go ahead.
That's a regional placement display problem.
Yeah.
Done by the manager or the regional manager there in that Walmart. Now,
I will be going to the other ones around to check.
Yeah, I would double check too.
Right, especially
Absolutely.
since they're paying for an end cap, and that's primo placement right there, the end cap. That
Well,
goes
that end cap-
better than in the middle of the aisle. But at least that manager put that stuff on the top rack. So that hopefully a parent will be up there looking at it and scanning it rather than a child just picking up and go, "Hey, mommy, what's this? Two girls, one cup movie about? Sort of thing." So,
I disagree, Brian. I think the manager put it up there because they don't want the kids to rip it.
But we don't know. We don't know is the problem.
Well, I'll find out when I'll follow up with the story guy.
Beat that guy up.
This is
Give him hell.
Rob,
Go
let us know.
live at your local Walmart and
Yeah. I'll broadcast
Rob
it.
right now is like,
But-
Rob right now is like the comic book Karen, who's just like, I want to speak to your manager.
speak to your manager.
We were worried about Randy.
You know what, Chuck?
I'm
Hold
good.
on.
I ordered mine from Walmart.com because I don't even want to walk into a Walmart.
Hold
So
on.
I just had them mail them to me.
Chuck,
Very good.
my mother's name is Karen. I don't know if all days for you to make such an ugly joke.
Are you saying it's like the N word? Is that what you're saying
I
right
didn't say
now?
that. I didn't say that, but I will say this: it sure seems to be picking on a lot of white ladies. I'm just saying.
But as far as comics being treated like kids' literature, that's been going on since before you were born, Rob.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, day one.
It's the same thing though with animation, and we have to fight that same thing the same way that Adult Swim has to fight it.
But they
So,
don't fight it like we do. They get contracts, dude. They get motion pictures. We get a motion picture and it can't be a cartoon. Everyone has told Marvel you can't make a motion picture cartoon. That's why they're literally going to Disney Plus to prove them fucking wrong by making cartoons that are powerful. Look at The Mask of the Phantasm. Honestly, best comic book movie ever made. I will fight anyone tooth and nail for that. That is the best comic book movie ever made. It was distributed to theaters, didn't get an Oscar, didn't get any awards, still holds up, still classic book. You can watch that today. It's still, yeah, Randy.
I would like, though.
The animation, just like comics, is a slow boat that has to be turned. With animation, you have adult cartoons out there. Any parent that sits and watches The Simpsons or lets their kid watch Rick and Morty or whatever realizes there's cartoons are out there. There are cartoons out there not made for kids. Comics, on the other hand, have always had that stigma to fight with. Plus, they have this ever inclusive small window of distribution called a retail shop that they can't, or that they're just now trying their best to try to break out of, that they've been stuck in the last 30 years in order to try to find a better, bigger outlet. So
I want to say something about kind of back to what you were talking about the industry. I wrote down a series of notes here, but one of which was
Hold on.
Okay.
He's going on a soapbox.
That's right.
There we go. So
When by the way, you triggered Lola. She's in the back. She's complaining. She said she needs to smoke.
Tell her to come on.
I told her. I said,
now she's throwing stuff.
I told her,
You have to go to Facebook and put comments, or you have to come onto the show. You don't get to go through Varian. We know he's your puppet, but this time we need you front and center.
You know what? She. I told her. I said, "Well, you can go ahead and have a cigarette." She says, "No, Rob's upset me so bad. I need something stronger than cigarettes." And she doesn't smoke. So now she's really
Drug was allowed on the show too.
On Mother's Day, Rob, you would do this.
On Mother's Day.
No, but I was gonna say a couple years ago, Lola bought me a tattoo machine, all the stuff, everything that I needed to get started, and I started training. And I thought, okay, I'm pretty good. I can go get a job at a shop, and then I learned about apprenticeships, and I got really upset because I didn't understand the idea of why I had to go get an apprenticeship, and it was explained to me that the apprenticeships are so that it honestly is. I don't want to use the word purity test, but they break you. You know, you're not coming in there tattooing and what they called I forgot their terminology for it. Scratching, I think is what they called it on people. You're not just gonna go out here and just like the larger tattoo artists, they really dislike people who go by and do mobile tattoos, come to your house and lay on your sofa and do a tattoo for you. They really hate that, and they almost want a sense of is it provenance, where like a painting where you have to find out who owned it, and
yes,
they want to know who trained you and who trained them. It's kind of like a lineage.
All right, bring it in, Varian. Bring it in.
So what I'm saying is that I've heard people suggest that happen in comics, that you have to, pay a type of dues. You have to go through a apprenticeship almost before.
Gatekeeping.
And I will admit that does seem like gatekeeping. But what
allergies? Gatekeeping.
Paying your dues is doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not doing the work, then you haven't paid your dues.
Living the school of hard knocks, baby.
Varian.
Yeah.
You try to make rich people have people work for free. What's wrong with you, man?
I mean,
what's wrong with you?
Well, a long time ago, when I first got into it, I was publishing the Melby comics. Doug Paskowitz of Illustrating Lullaby told me, the big secret of getting, famous in this industry or whatever, don't quit. Because everybody around you is just eventually going to fall away. As long as you stay there, you'll make it.
Mm-hmm.
And I lived by that ever since he said it.
Yep.
I've lived by that. And then I had an art teacher in college who told me, no piece is ever done. You just get to a point where if you do any more, you're going to F it up. And that's when you stop. So those are the two things creatively that I live by. And it's served me well ever since. But, and just like Cody Rhodes in wrestling, do the work. He's got it on a t-shirt, do the work. And we got to have that mindset in this community. If we're going to have an industry, is we've got to be the type of people who will do the work.
All right, hold up. We're going to take a pause here. We're at the 1 hour mark, like I always do. If anyone has to leave because they are busy, I love that Eric's doing that. If you're busy, or you have somewhere to be. I know it's Mother's Day. If you guys want to leave, I'm happy to do that. By the way, Wendy, happy Mother's Day. Meredith will be back. Happy Mother's Day. We will continue this conversation. It seems like it'll be a 2-hour conversation. I will stay with anyone who can stay. If someone has to leave, now is the time. But we are going to break also to do the people watching have a lot to say. So we're going to break right now from our natural conversation. We're going to address some people who are in the audience, because without them, what are we doing here, right? So no one has to go, right?
I do have to step out because I have to go.
Let Lola in.
Yeah.
Give Lola your rig.
He's got to go calm Lola down.
Yeah. She's
Lola, we all
Mother's
said
Day,
happy
Lola.
Mother's Day.
she's throwing stuff all over the house. Now,
All right,
Robert,
Eric, you can unplug.
yeah. You guys all have a good day. If I've triggered you, that's what I do.
Hold on. Before you go, I just want them to associate the name.
Yeah.
Either one of them is fun. I don't care where it goes, to be honest with you.
Make sure that indie vote is care of Randy Zimmerman.
And when you write to Rising Tide, make sure it's in charge, directed to Randy Zimmerman.
I
too.
got my email address right there if you want to address it to me personally. You're welcome.
Yeah, because only
The
idiots would
rest
put
of that
their.
you can send to indievolt.com.
I was going to say only idiots put their web address up.
Yeah, there you go.
You guys have a great day. Stay safe. Stay healthy.
Eric, please
Take
stop.
care, buddy.
You're
Bye.
going to get stuck there forever. All right.
It's a good thing my joints are mostly made out of concrete. It's easy to do that.
All right, let's get to some comments. We'll stop when there's something to really talk about, but we'll just read the more generic ones that are just saying hi to us and stuff like that. So Sarah says, hello there, guys. Hello, Sarah. Well, hello, big panel. You know, that's not the first time I've heard that. Brian being quiet was very unusual, right? Like, I didn't know he could just listen. I learned something today. Connor says, hey, guys. Sarah says, like this on YouTube. Thank you, Sarah. Varian says, and he just disappeared when this happened, so it's perfect timing, actually. It's a lot of us, a lot of great opinions, and I absolutely agree. And I want to thank everyone on the panel so far. You guys have disagreed like gentlemen and gentlewomen, like true professionals who just have different opinions. That's what a community should be, Chuck. Sarah says, absolutely awesome. And to see and absorb what everyone has to say. Industry with some people as a second family is how I see the word community. Working together, talking as friends outside of it in cases. Here's the difference why it's an industry. Because when it's an industry, it's okay to do something that you put yourself over someone else. Community, you got to hold hands. But sometimes in an industry, you got to punch up and go through your own way. And yes, it opens a door for other people. But you can't always take everyone with you. You have to realize you have to get to a certain spot to then give backwards. So at least that's it. Travis Gibb is joining us. He said, let me know when I reach the higher level. Well, I mean, I don't want to say, I know things that Travis is actually leveling up now on his own. I just don't know if I'm allowed to say them out loud, but he's got some big news coming out soon. So I would say that you're already level. I think you're always leveling up. If you're not, every year after year, if you're not leveling it up, then you are a hobbyist, and there's nothing wrong with that. But just stop showing up at a Comic-Con and not being at your table for half the show. Because then there is an artist that could have had that table that you might have taken away from them. If you're going to be at at the table the whole weekend, you're more than welcome. But when you show up at 2 o'clock on a Saturday, there's nothing there for there. Yes, take the industry seriously. I can see the difference Rob is making between the community and industry, and it makes sense. Thank you. Alfie said, hey, Chuck, I'm late to the party. Travis Gibb, you will. Hello, hand. LOL. Rob said, Sarah. Travis Gibb says, I disagree with you. And I don't even have to ask who. I just know it's me. I just know that was directed right at me. Sarah says, good point, Chuck. You got a point, Chuck. You're the only one on the board with a point, too. No one else got a point.
That's about right.
Alfie says, I'm a hobbyist, but I take this seriously. And let's stop right here. Let's talk about it, because this is being brought up a lot. Are hobbyists welcome? Let's go around the room. Randy.
Everybody's welcome. Make your stuff. Sell your stuff.
Brian.
Totally agree. One time I couldn't call myself a pro. But here I am, hanging out with these cool guys. The dream lives. What do you say, Chuck?
I love arguing with Randy, but he's Dead right.
Yeah, it's a consensus agreement. Yeah, you can come in. Anybody can come into this and give it a shot. The market will decide if you get to stay.
That's
Yeah.
it.
There you
For some
go.
people, it's always going to be a hobby, and that's fine. You know, maybe they just don't have the time to make it something else, or they don't have the desire to make it something else, but they still want to be part of it. So sure, keep it a hobby and be involved. Why not?
Though I will actually, the one thing I will say that I don't agree with is the market doesn't necessarily have a say, because there's some people who will just keep sinking money until the end of their days and keep making shit, and it won't matter. And that's okay. Now, will they get better? Will they get noticed? Probably not. But that doesn't mean that the market gets to tell them you're not sticking around, because some people are just stubborn like that.
Some people
I don't
enjoy
think,
it because they enjoy it.
Yeah.
but I don't think that's the. I think that you're answering your own question without realizing it. The market's just saying who's going to continue to prosper. You can have badly run companies. Look at GameStop, still ticking. So, like, I mean, you have some pretty bad companies out there that we all shake our head and go, how are you still open? JCPenney's. Am I the only one who does not know how JCPenney's is still here? I went into a JCPenney's and I'm like, this is the stuff that Goodwill wouldn't even take. And they're actually selling it for full price here.
They
So-
actually have sales where you buy stuff for a penny.
Yeah. Oh my God. They're such a mess.
How do we do it? Volume.
Volume. Yeah. Volume. It's not here. It's not here.
That's when your name keeps you going.
Yeah.
People know who JCPenney is, and you're going to shop with them because they know who they are.
Here's the thing I'll say about hobbyists. Go ahead, Randy.
To get back to comics, the cool thing about it, though, is that if you're there and you're producing and you're doing, hopefully you're always learning. The more you learn, the better you get. The more attention you're going to have, the more of a standing in the industry you're going to make, and hopefully, eventually, you'll start teaching everybody else how to be as tenacious as you are for staying out there.
Yeah, and I'd also like to add another thing in that
That's the whole thing.
I completely agree with Randy. Also, whatever you produce, your audience is out there.
Yeah.
You know, no matter what it is. But the trick is you just got to stay in the game long enough for them to find you and make yourself visible.
Now, I will
Promote.
For that audience to grow.
And I have to tell you, I do know of a couple of people that do shows on a very regular basis that produce their own work that's so bad it's good.
I'm still here, Randy. I'm still here.
One at a time.
It all has an incredible charm to
Okay.
it.
I'll make a comment in a second, but first, I think Eric was trying to say something first, then Chuck, then Brian. So go ahead, Eric.
I was just saying that's true of all creative medium. There's always, I mean, that's why B movies are so great. They're just so bad. They're good.
Yep.
You know, and it's just, there's an audience for everything, but you know, don't, you find your audience, don't be jealous of somebody else's audience, because that means you have more work to grow. If you want their audience, you got a long way to go. But
Chuck?
I think we've all seen this this one book around. I won't mention any names, but it's literally made on MS Paint, and it's like a comic. It's not like, you know, one of the little comic strips like Garfield or something. And it's actually made in MS Paint, everything, even the lettering and stuff. And you know, you look at it and you're like, is that what we do? But they sell and people pick it up and they have an audience. So you go, okay, well, it's not my thing, but good luck.
Brian? Brian.
No, I really can't add anything to that. Then I won't.
Okay. So here's the thing I will say about hobbyists. You are welcome, but also understand, don't show up to the threads and start throwing out your ideas when you're basing it on someone who doesn't care about going to cons week after week. Don't come in and start correcting people who are literally going to con after con. And Randy, you have someone on your show who doesn't do any cons, but will tell us how to do things at cons. And I don't understand that. Someone who's not allowed to go to cons, but will tell us about the things that you're doing at cons.
It took a minute. It's not that he doesn't. It's just that he can't.
He can't, but he'll sit there and tell us all. Meanwhile, I'm doing 26 shows a year to 30 shows a year, but he's telling me about what it is to do a con. Understand, you're a hobbyist. Treat it as that. have your opinion, but also say, but listen, I don't do a lot of shows. Be honest about it. Don't come off as someone who, oh, I'm just like you guys. No, you're not. You do one book a year. You are not just like us. You are welcome in this space.
Well,
but Chuck is killing himself to put out as much content. Randy, you're killing yourself to do that. Like, respect that other people take this serious. This isn't a hobby for them. This is a literal life thing. Whether you call it a career, whether you call it a source of income, I don't care what you call it, but it's dead serious to us. Because I've seen some hobbyists, and this is where the heat comes from. Some hobbyists are just like, oh, this really isn't affecting me too much right now because I'm just working from home and I don't have to worry about missing cons. It is some of the ugliest statement you could make. And I don't know how you would make that statement when the industry is hurting right now. I have friends who are worried about making rent and eating next month. And they're like, oh, it doesn't bother me. I'm still getting paid. That's ugly shit. Don't be ugly in this space. That's all I ask. You want to be a hobbyist? Welcome to the club, but don't be an ugly motherfucker.
Professor Trico was worried that you were talking about him there. He's in the chat going.
No, everyone knows. And it's nothing against him, but he will tell me about like, oh, and he called my book a niche book at one point. I'm like, dude, I'm at 26 to 30 shows a year. My book sells. Chuck sells my book. My book does just fine. You're basing everything on a Kickstarter where you use covers to make money. You don't exactly have the biggest backer count. And we kind of went up at that during a show. And he didn't really know what to say when I started pointing that out. So please don't be that person. Know your space in life. Listen to other people, be respectful, and don't talk down to people. I don't care this is a hobby. You've stepped into an industry. Behave as such is my point. Is that fair, Chuck?
I think in that regard, yeah. Look, I don't think that you guys are quite getting me. I've never once said it's not an industry. I'm trying to tell you that it's both.
I agree with you.
That's all I'm ever saying.
But I said we have to understand the industry comes above the community. I think that's where we disagree.
And my local community still needs to stay off of my lawn.
I think you know what? I think you're correct in that people need to respect that it is an industry. However, it's kind of funny because sometimes there's moments where the industry needs to respect hobbyists in a way too. How many times have you seen a thread where someone's like, "Hey man, I don't really have any money, but I'm hoping to do a collaboration," and someone will come in and just be like, "No, you have to fucking pay them." Blah blah. And it's like, whoa, dude, this guy's just trying to get his first book out. There's other hobbyists who are willing to do that. Why don't you just not respond and let those people meet up and leave them alone? So I think it, again, there's two sides to this still, but you're correct. If you're a hobbyist, maybe don't jump in and try to tell the people who are trying to do this for a living how to do things, because there's some things that we've seen that you haven't.
No, they should sit back and listen and learn.
Yeah. I get people constantly who are telling me how to do what I do. I frequently get people for my show, never mind the furthermore, 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central, that who come in and tell me, okay, tomorrow have me on your show so you can interview me. That's not how it works. Or here is my 93,000 page barbarian pornography novel for you to publish. Yeah, I know. We're talking to you, Randy. We're talking to you, brother. But you have to tell them that's not my jam. That's not where I'm at. And a lot of people just don't understand. And unfortunately, we live in a culture now where too many people think that when we stop and instruct them, here's how it really needs to be done because of community standards, because this is what works, and they take this as some sort of personal attack. I recently had somebody that was trying to redefine my niche, my show, and I said, well, actually, you really should do this. You should do. And then I found a lecture she was giving her followers about the word "should" is a personal insult, along with like right up there with the N-word. And I'm like, not according to Merriam-Webster, it's not. So we're always going to have people.
It's not. But go ahead.
Yeah, it's a good point, Randy. Thank you. But it's like, there's always going to be people that just don't understand. And that's why everyone really needs, people at the higher levels need to be educating other people. Because, at one point, Frank Miller was in an APA doing, stuff for 50 people. And then eventually he turned into capital F, capital M Frank Miller. they're all, Roy Thomas was teaching high school when all of a sudden, he earned his way into the industry, but his first job was working on Millie the Model. Okay. He didn't exactly start with Conan the Barbarian, like Eric said, we all have to pay our dues, and part of it is education, that people at a certain level need to educate the people beneath them. And at the same token, we all need to be mindful of the people around us who have good ideas and to incorporate what ideas work for us. So I think the education thing goes up and down in all directions. So I think that's part of the industry and the community. That's how the community basically grows itself and supports itself, and then the industry is just all what we're doing at our various levels.
Don't listen to him, Brian. I think you're doing it right.
Point of personal privilege. Point of personal privilege.
Yeah, I know it's the Fez privilege. Don't be trying to appropriate my Fez thing. Okay, I saw the dinosaur thing long before you did. I'm just the one that applied the adult entertainment industry to it. Okay, that's another show.
Just to bounce off what you were saying, Brian. On the reverse of that, we have to get to a point where we also ignore the chaff in this business, because there's a lot of it, and we can spend all of our days getting hung up over why so and so is still seemingly in business. But you just have to put it past you, ignore the chaff, and focus on your own, like running your own race.
Yep,
That's really what it comes down to.
well said.
Yep.
What chap are you showing off? Oh, okay.
It's funny. His book doesn't know how to use the word right correctly, so he doesn't know what is right and wrong. Sorry, Chuck.
It's a book I'm proofreading.
I would like to actually say something very important. Everybody, I apologize for mentioning that name. I won't do it again. I opened up the fucking box. It won't happen again. I honestly thought someone else was going to do it, and I just wanted to be the one to do it. Shut the box.
Step it on the grenade there.
Yeah.
Why do you look more handsome all of a sudden there, Rob?
You're in public, Rob? What?
Clark,
Wow.
oh my God.
All right, so we got more comments. Let's keep up with them. So comics is this is Travis Gibb. Comics is a community-based business. It lives and dies by community. There is also a huge difference between community and fans, and I have to disagree, and we'll send this around. There was no such thing as a community when comics first came out. It was always an industry to begin. Community is something that started when indie comics showed up. I'm sorry, it's just the truth. There were people who made comics. There were creators who gathered a little bit, but then there was the industry side of it, because there wasn't a way to make your own comics. Maybe the 80s, when independent comics actually started, an underground comic. Even underground comics, I guess, would be.
Get him, Randy. Get him, Randy.
I'll let you. Do you want to take it? Do you want to take it, Brian? Do you want to take it?
Oh, okay. I'll take the flack this time. Fandom, as we know, it actually started like pretty much back in the 50s. With the old EC letter columns, where people then started exchanging letters with each other, and then it morphed into the 60s with fanzines. Look this up, kids. It's probably on Wikipedia. And the fan communities that grew out of that, from which a number of pros came out of. Like virtually everyone from the 60s, pretty much. And I think that's my era and Randy's. You proved yourself in the fanzines. So. Like Jim Starlin was out of a community of Detroit creators that include Al Milgram and Rich Buckler, and eventually they broke into the pro ranks, et cetera, and on up. Now you've got the internet, you've got web comics, you've got I broke in with mimeographed comic, or not mimeo, but photocopied comics, and I got distributed through Capital City. Yeah. And here I am today. But we've had the fandom thing for the longest time, and a lot of things that you hear about the difficulties now really are nothing new. They've been around for decades, long before many of you guys were born. Not that I'm ageist or anything, but I live next door to Randy. Keep off of all our lawns. Anyway, it's just it's almost like the song never changes, just the volume. So that's why Randy and I are making faces.
What he said. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think the fandom community there's just a natural outspring of if a product comes out that people love, you're going to have a fandom community that's going to outspring from that instantaneously. We think about like other, like in animation and toys and even outside the creative community. If you think about other products like cars, there's communities that just love the Ford Mustang product or the, or a certain genre or generation of cars. Those things are just always the natural outcroppings. People are going to have a passion about something. They're going to want to associate with other people who have that same passion. And it just becomes a way of supporting and bolstering that.
And this is going to get really awkward right now because, and I agree with Travis here. It's not why it's awkward. It's what he said. There's also a huge difference between community and fans. So he separates fans out of a community, saying that fans are part of the community, yes, but they are also completely separate.
I think that all settles down to what your definition of community is. Again.
Yeah, because in my experience,
we did it one time per show. I'll Travis, thank you for your comments. We're moving on. Travis Kidd goes on to say, all comics have been built on community. Oh boy. And that's what makes it special. Letter pages, no prizes, and Comic Cons were built to build the community. There is some wrong in there. Comics weren't always built by community. They were built by companies. But beyond that, I'll open up the room. Randy, go for it.
Letters, columns, fan clubs, and all that weren't built on community. They were built on making money and making part of the industry. The FOOMs, the Friends of Old Marvel, and all that were to gather a solid base, not a community, but of income constantly coming in to make sure that these books always sold. The community aspect of it is came much later. I think a lot of the again, we're back to that blinder situation with just solely the retail shops. I think a lot of that community sprung up out of them retail shops.
Diamond.
Well, no, not and Diamond is a whole nother different funnel.
Yeah, right.
Which quite frankly, it is a very small hole. But anyway, in my town, we had at one point 5 different comic shops, and they all serviced 5 different communities. Because if you didn't like the way this guy did business, you could always go across town and get your comics from the other guy.
Capitalism.
Capitalism, business, industry.
I'm all for that. Yes.
That's that's really where all of this sprung from. The problem is now all of these comic shops have narrowed down so much that we're lucky if you're that lucky that you actually have one decent comic shop in your town instead of the 5 or 6 that used to be there.
Mm-hmm.
That's partially because of that hole, but that's a whole nother story.
And I will say, and then ask Wendy, I do think comics now rely on community more than ever. And I as Wendy is starting to actually make a comic now, are you worried about building that community before you even have a product? Because you know that you need to build a community around you.
Yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely. I think I'm lucky in a way because Chuck's already been involved in the community for as long as he has been, and I've kind of been in the background, listening and learning over that time. I feel like I already have at least some semblance of community, but I still have to build my own community or my own fan base and my own supporters. But being, like I said, being involved with what Chuck's been in and stuff for as long as he's been, I have a little bit of a head start. So that works in my favor. But at the same time, I still need to build from where I'm at as I try to get my first book out. So I am lucky compared to some others who are starting absolutely from scratch. You know, they're not involved with the community yet, or they don't know anyone, or they have a lot more work to do than I do.
Trico's a nut.
Okay, guys, door's open. Travis threw out on the thing. Do you think it takes community to build comic books now? I would agree with, again, I'm going to agree with him. I just don't think it was always that way. But with social media, I definitely think comics have changed. And I think that's why hobbyists can be successful, because they build themselves a micro community. Go ahead, Eric.
This is exactly what Comicsgate is. It's an effort on behalf of creators to start building their own community and bring them in and make them a part. You know, back in the old days, you had the letters to the editor, the bullpen bull-ups and all of that stuff, where people could feel like they're a part of something because they can write in and get their letter printed. Well, now we have things like Comicsgate, and then everybody who's operating in that, they start their own Discords, have their own Patreons. These things are successful because it brings the fan base in, so that you have, like what Andy was saying, you have a solid fan base that you know you can make money with, that will support you. You make them a part of it, they're going to be more willing to support you. So all of these tools like Discord and all that have propped up from that. Speaking on my own behalf, I have, in the wrestling community, huge support for my artwork. And the last 2 days, my community really showed up and showed me that, because I raised enough money with selling some older stock that I had just found cleaning out the garage. I sold it in bulk rate, and I made enough to pay my rent this month in 2 days.
Good.
So I'm very thankful for them, and I take the time to thank each and every single one of them. And that's part of being a good business. If you want to be a good business, the people that you want to do business with you need to feel like they're a part of it. Bring them in some fashion. And what's the groundwork that I'm laying for Dreaded Dinosaur Man? I put it up on Webtoon, which you can read for free with the Webtoon app on iOS or Android. I put it up there so people could start enjoying the universe. And I need to get back to putting up issues after Piper is finished. I need to start putting up episodes of Dinosaur Man on Webtoon so that I can build up to, hey, we're coming up with an actual book. We're going to be on Indiegogo. You like the Webtoon, you're going to get more stories here. It's going to be a continuation. It's not going to be a reprinting. And that's my strategy going forward, is that the Webtoon serves as a jumping on place that's safe for people to come into the community that I'm building. And hopefully that they will enjoy it enough that they're going to support the products I have for purchase, like comics. I have an idea for a video game I want to put together, and eventually an animation, because that's where I'm classically trained as an animator from school. And but those are all, it's a roadmap that I'm traveling along, and it's all pre-planned. And bringing people in and making them a part of that community is an essential part of it. And anybody who's going to make it in this industry needs to be able to do that. And if you're not the type who can be on camera, being a showman, being a lightning rod like somebody like Ethan Van Sciver is, or some of the others who have really successful YouTube channels, then you need, like Brian, you need to find a way or somebody to speak for you to start doing that, because it's an essential part of this as a business now.
Yeah. And I love hearing that, Eric. I really do. And congratulations, seriously. That makes me happy to hear that you've got a plan and it is paying off. And that's something that a lot of people need to realize. I think that there's an old cliche that if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. And a lot of people come into this business without any sort of game plan. I mean, it wasn't until like about 4 years ago I started using a business plan, and it is paying off. And I think also Eric brought up, made a really good point in that he's doing all this incredible work, and people see that, and so they are willing to invest in that person. And again, this will go back. See, I tie all these things together. It goes into not giving up, because, like, for instance, 8 years ago, nobody knew who the hell I was, except this little tiny circle. But, because of broadcasting, because of getting to know people, and because I put out a certain amount of product in a certain niche that people say, okay, this is good stuff, they are willing to invest in you. Whether it's buying your comic or buying your prints, or, Eric, I just did the same thing about 2 weeks ago with no shows going on. I started selling my books on my shows. I had my table stock that, it had nowhere to go. And right now where it's going is getting further and further into the future.
Yeah.
So I made some offers to my people, and I, within 3 days, sold out of virtually all my stock.
That's
that I was
great.
going to take to a convention.
Tremendous.
Thank you. And so, and I also started a tip jar that I earmarked it for a certain thing, improving the look of my books, improving the look of my broadcast. And I have had some people contribute to that. And I thank everyone. I'm grateful. I do a newsletter. I keep everyone involved. And it's a lot of stuff that isn't exactly writing, but it is creating my community. And and then I tell people about you guys and your community so that maybe we can have some overlap. And so, there's a lot of moving parts to this. It's simple, but it's frequently not easy. But planning and having a roadmap to go by and benchmarks to look for, that's what I think that's what's going to separate the hobbyist from the fan, from the semi-professional to the professional, on up and down the ladder. And Chuck, I saw that you had your hand up. What would you like to say, sir?
Well, it's funny because I really respect what you guys are doing, but the difference between us is that I make most of my money as a freelance editor. That's where my money comes in. So selling books online and stuff right now, it's actually not going to make a lot of money for me, just because the shipping and everything else that really kind of digs into it. So I kind of did the opposite, where I noticed there was a lot of people who really needed this income and needed that money to come in. So instead, I stepped back and I said, look, if you want to make something, I'll be your editor. But I don't know if a lot of people have noticed, I'm not pushing my books. And the reason I'm not pushing my books is right now, those books aren't paying my rent. They're not doing that. I'm going to have my books ready for conventions, and they're going to be there when I need them. But right now, I really want people to support the people who need that money, because I'm not that dude right now.
All right, guys. I think we covered that pretty well. We're going to continue.
I want to bounce off one more thing. I want to say this about Brian. One of the things that always impressed me before I even knew him, on a face-to-face Let's Talk banner, is that he is very successful at visually branding himself. From the title, Never Mind the Furthermore, which has always stuck out in my mind as an interesting thing. The bow tie, the fez hat. This is a branded look, and everybody needs to learn from his example. This is part of how you sell yourself, and selling yourself is going to sell your book. So I love that, the little crochet. Oh, that's great. And that is key, and that's something that I think is lacking in our community as a larger part of our industry, is that there's a lot of terrible business people who don't realize that you are your brand when you're doing this, and that you need to be aware of what you look like on camera. There's a reason why I have this really cool red highlight coming off of my face. I have a light here that's really obnoxious, but red is a central theme of Dinosaur Man because his head is red. So I'm trying to incorporate that. There's a reason why when I was doing cons on Saturdays, I dressed up in a 3-piece suit with a tie, with a mohawk. And I'm going to be doing that in my episode content that I'm doing on YouTube. And it's part of this visual branding. I didn't put it up tonight, but I've got stuff that I put up on the Indie Vault channel, which has my Dinosaur Man character and a little bit about me. And it's all part of that central branding. And this is something that everybody needs to work on. We've got various different levels of webcamery in this group, different areas of lighting. Look at screen caps, watch yourself, watch your lighting, see how you can improve it, see how you can add that professional polish, and just build on it over time, because that's going to be part of what sells you to your community that you're building. It's like, hey, this is a professional product. This isn't chintzy. And I'm not calling anybody here chintzy. I'm just saying, be the type of person who can look at what you look like on camera and say, hey, I could change this. I could look a little better like this.
Eric,
analyze those things. Yes.
We're going down rabbit holes.
I know. I go
community. Yeah.
But he said something nice about me.
Bring it home.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you
sincerely,
Eric. Thank you very much.
Remember, we don't do a show if we don't acknowledge people writing comments. So let's acknowledge them, guys.
Next comment.
Travis Gibb again. Wait a minute. Sorry, I didn't get this. A lot of red tape with the industry. People coming together for it as a mutual passion as community, at least from my perspective. Is there a lot of red tape? I don't know. There's a lot of gatekeeping. Do you guys think there's a lot of red tape?
There used to be. There's not really anymore. I mean, You can call up Kablam, send them your files. You got a comic, you scrape together $300 or $400. You can do a Comic-Con. That's a lot of missing red tape that there used to be.
Randy?
It's like what Obi-Wan says. It all depends upon your point of view and what you want to do, how much red tape you want to throw up in front of yourself, what you want to accomplish, and what you learn, or what you want to learn, and what you decide to do as far as being in the industry, and how you're going to get there. You know, that it is as easy as Eric said. It's also super rough if you have to go out and find a mentor or have to kiss behind for decades at shows just to get a short story job at one of the big two. You know, it can be rough depending upon where your destination is, but going towards that destination, you might just rediscover a way to cut through a lot of that red tape.
Now,
and to do stuff for yourself.
Now, Wendy, you're brand new. We might be jaded. Some of us have, like I have over a decade. Randy has, I don't want to put a number out there, but he has over a decade. Brian has a century. Dreaded Dinosaur Man, you've been around, again, we'll say decade.
Yeah, at least.
I've been around for a good 5 years now. We might be jaded. So let's go to Wendy, who's brand new to this. Are you seeing red tape? Are you finding that there are things trying to block you? Because by now we've cut through that beginning layer.
For me personally, I haven't really run into a lot of red tape. But again, like I said, I've been lucky with my introduction into the industry and the community itself. So, I mean, the biggest problem I've had so far, I guess, was just getting the people I needed to work on my book. But because I've kind of made my presence known within the community, that didn't take very long. So, but I can see a lot of newcomers having the issues of just knowing how to get started and what they have to do in order to make their project happen. So, you know, I mean, in an aspect, I guess that is the red tape that they have to deal with. If they're absolutely brand new and they don't know anyone, they don't know how it works and whatnot, there could be a lot of red tape to get through. Yeah.
I don't know who that Facebook user was, but I love you for loving me.
Jonathan Hedrick.
Oh yeah, thanks, homie. Much appreciated.
All right.
Good dude.
Comics is an art form, just like learning how to use any kind of skill or any kind of tool. You can't just walk into a guitar store, pick up a guitar, and start playing hard rock. It doesn't. That's not the way it works. You have to learn. You have to research. You have to figure it out, and you have to find your own way, because the way you play guitar might not be the same way that everybody else plays guitar.
Say it, Randy. Say it.
What?
You got to. You got to.
Got to.
You have
to. You have to go out and get an education. Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
You have to know when to. Oh, okay. So
yeah, that's whatever my mind went, Chuck.
Travis said, I fear that anyone who tried to turn this into a debate on what's good enough to be in comics, that's what industry does. It becomes a gatekeeper that's dangerous. I would disagree. I think industry, there are no gatekeepers. It's your consumer. They are the ones who are empowered. When you look at it in an industry, look at Marvel. Marvel's supposed to be the biggest company out there with comics, and they're not doing so well when it comes to comics.
And in a lot of ways, they got the biggest gates out there.
Yeah, so I think and that's not an industry. Marvel's a community. There goes the gates, the gated community. Yep. But comic books in an industry, the fans are, and remember, the fans aren't. We'll go to you, Eric. When the fans aren't paying you to create, you go in. And at the end of this C19, we're going to see a lot of people no longer around that were publishers, because they're going to not have the support they all told us they had. Go ahead, Eric.
I always like to make the point that making anything, you know, you treat it as your child, and nobody wants to think that they have an ugly baby. But if the market isn't responding, you know, I've seen countless people at shows where people are just like, they get forlorn and they get in this level like, buy my book. You know, going back to all of the things that I said too about being a package, being your own brand. But in the end, if you don't have a product that people want, you can't force that on them. You have to swallow your pride, look at it, say, what am I doing wrong? What is wrong with this product? Can I make changes? what have I learned in this process that I can inform me to make changes and start again and not give up.
I have an ugly baby, and I don't know why people don't see it as beautiful as I do, but I do. I have an ugly baby.
And it could just be it's not the time for it. You know, there's lots of projects out there that are great. They never take off. They never make money because it's just not their time.
Yeah,
That's true.
very true.
Oh, he is only a month.
But look what happened with Cat Dad and Supermom. You retooled, you made changes, and now you're featured on Kickstarter as a project they love. Congratulations.
They
Definitely
love.
Congratulations.
Yep.
10 days ago.
I was busy promoting. I was doing my look. I was doing my job so hard campaigning for it. I didn't even know that we'd gotten accolades. That's how hard I was at trying to get this across.
And that's going to help you in the next project. And
Hold
I
on,
would just
hold
keep
on.
going.
He was on every program with me, and he didn't notice it either. And we showed that every time. And it's been on Brian K. Morris' show. The last 10 days, no one noticed until today. When I just looked down at, I don't even know why I looked at it, and I saw it, and I was like,
Well, it's such a small line, though. It's easy to miss.
Yeah, it really is.
and meanwhile, I'm like, I'm doing such a good job of promoting this. Look at all the people joining. It's no project you
You
love.
saw it?
Yeah.
Thanks for telling me, Brian.
Well, I was under the mistaken impression that you were paying attention.
That's the end of Brian. That's the end.
Oh, my.
Oh, no.
Vicious. That was vicious.
That's what I
damn
need
right
to
it
start doing on
was.
Indie Volt is kicking people like that.
So when am I coming on, Randy?
He's gonna turn into the Nasser of this community.
There we go.
All right, Travis Gibb says comics have always been about building things. I disagree. I do not think comics are about building things.
What are we building?
I think he means communities. I think comics have always been expression. That's me. It is a person expressing their view on whatever
Well,
it is.
Comics are an art form, and yeah, a lot of that is very expressive, and depending upon how independent you are, which is why we have independent comics, is how much of your expression gets out there.
Because wouldn't that eliminate the hobbyist, Chuck? If it's about building something, doesn't that stop it from being a hobby? Because they're not trying to build something; they're just
No.
doing something.
No, heck no. Hobbyists build all
How does that
sorts of
stop
stuff.
that? They're
No.
building something. They're building a community, and they're building a brand, and they're building a comic. Like,
Okay,
they're still building.
fair.
Might be the only one they ever do, but they're still
Yeah.
doing it.
Yeah.
Okay, fair point. Fair point. Travis also goes on to say that other things that people shit on if someone goes to Comixology versus in stores, and that's true. Travis brings up a great point. Everyone's just so eager to shit on people when they're making successful moves and they're getting things done and they're doing different things. The first thing they want to do, oh, you're on Webtoons, Eric? Webtoons is shit. You're not getting paid. Why do I have to bother with you?
Uh-oh, here
If
comes
I
the
work
wife.
hard enough at Webtoons, I will get paid because they've put that into their platform.
That's Rob.
Happy
That's
Mother's Day.
That's Eric. He says Happy Mother's Day. That's Brian.
Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day. Yeah, but I agree with him completely, Travis Gibb.
I didn't hear what you said, though.
Oh no. Oh no, he's talking. Okay. I absolutely agree that like when you're shitting on people, you're just trying to rip people down. It's some of the ugliest shit in our
Yeah.
industry, community. Go ahead, Randy.
I was just going to say that's been one of the biggest problems in this community is that everybody wants to troll. And when you troll, you're bringing out your own inadequacies.
Yep.
Most
Envy,
of the time,
jealousy.
you're pointing out envy, jealousy. You're pointing out your own inadequacies when you go out and you troll like that.
Yep.
And everybody else needs to realize that. Unfortunately, trolling is the number one deterrent for new people coming in. New people coming in don't do something exactly right. They end up getting their butt trolled, and then, I got to get out of the industry. Or they get chased out because of that trolling community.
Yeah, you need to ignore the chaff and focus on your own thing.
Part of the hassle of the social media. Social media. Again.
Yeah,
air quotes.
our friend Peter Samiti, he's going through it again now with two people harassing him on Twitter, saying he faked his swatting attack and all this diversive garbage.
Idiocy because they're jealous.
You
Yeah,
made Chuck, Eric. I hope you're happy. Chuck got so mad at you, he walked away.
Did he? Chuck got
Walked
mad.
away. We got an upgrade.
No.
He's back. He's back. Damn.
He had to step
Eric,
out for a
very hard.
second.
That's okay. I'm going to actually have to get going because I have a thing at 6.
Okay.
So a great conversation. Thank you for
Thank you
letting
for
me
being
jump in,
and Eric,
guys.
thank you for being part of the Cat Dad team. That's
See ya, Eric.
Absolutely. Look forward
Bye.
to working on issue 2. You gonna start that up?
Yep. Tell people where to follow you.
All right, at Dreaded Dinosaur on all the social medias. Please, if you're new to me, go to Webtoon, read the first 2 chapters of Dreaded Dinosaur Man. I know you'll get hooked on it, and know that new chapters are coming soon. As soon as I finish the Roddy Piper Kilted Avenger comic, and just follow me, and you'll know when that's available for purchase, and it's going to be great. You're going to love it.
Thank you so much for being with us today. Does anyone else have to go? We're going to be wrapping up in about 15 minutes. So the goal right now is just to get through the next 15 minutes.
I
Finish
think
our
I'm good.
comment. Okay. I'll try to do a speed round with some of these comments too, so we can because we are going to hit 2 hours and it's Mother's Day. I want everyone to be able to do their thing. Plus, it's Sunday night. And the wrestling show's about to start, and I didn't finish SmackDown. LOL, Variant Grant. I remember those days with NWO versus WCW. Walmart can do it again if they're smart selling independent comics. And my hope is that they can make money off comics, and then we as independent creators can go to their stores and go, hey, shouldn't you do like a local creators thing and start to build into there and then hopefully get wider distribution. But we'll have to see how that turns out. First, we have to go out and buy these comics to show Walmart there's money to be made. It all begins there.
But I promise you, though, Walmart is looking at those comics as just another widget. And if they can make money off of that widget, they're going to make more widgets.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the way it works.
Travis said the problem with comics as a whole is people think if they follow Kickstarter, then they are in the know. They think if they follow comic stores, they are aware of what's going on. And he brings up a good point. People have blinders, and it's like the fan thing again. Well, I'm just Marvel. This is how the industry is because Marvel is all there is. No, there's DC, there's Image, and guess what? Hundreds of other things, if not thousands of other things going on. So great point, Travis Gibb. Did anyone want to touch on that comment?
No.
Okay, good. Sarah said, I get the difference of the definition of hobbyist and who's actually working now. I think LOL, still learning, always learning. I think I like when corrections or clarifications happen. And one final comment, trolls are bullies. They need Cat Dad and Supermom to learn not to bully, which can be found at until 9 p.m. today at www.catdadandsupermom.com. And we have a few more comments over here, but we're done with that. And I'm going to shut my phone off because we are going to be wrapping up. So no more comments from that. You have to go directly to YouTube. We'll try to read them as we go. And remember to subscribe to YouTube when you're here. I think some people can use red tape for themselves. I can use it for very other different reasons. You know, there might be some red tape for. A good topic might be understanding the difference between red tape and people keeping closed lips about sharing the process because they want to keep the perception of exclusivity. And that is true. We said that about, and I hate to bring up his name because I'm not even going to bring up his name. There is a creator out there who has created a book, and a lot of what he tried to sell as his own was actually advice given by other people, and he had brought it all into one place and then tried to get himself seeming like he was the creator of many of those ideas. He wasn't. And then he left off certain points that could have helped people that he didn't put in there, and he kept just for himself so he could be successful. He's right. I mean, I'm sorry, Meredith is right. Some people do try to keep the secret sauce for themselves to try to keep you down, but they tell you just enough so you'll buy their book. And that is ugly. And it's Brian's fault. I absolutely agree. Everything today has been Brian's fault, including the success of Cat Dad and Supermom, which is a lot of his fault, and I thank him for it being his fault. Thank you, Brian K-Morse.
Thank you, Rob, for giving me something great to promote. Seriously, man, I'm proud of you, and I think we all are. And I think the one way we, grow this, this business, this community, is by producing exceptional work. And you did that, Rob. You and Raheel and everyone that worked on your covers, everyone that did everything. It wasn't just me. It was a whole lot of people who did this. But and Chuck.
Now, Chuck,
Never love Chuck. Never love. No, seriously,
Have
you
you
guys
read
created
the
something
second-
awesome. Seriously, and it was a pleasure to get that in front of other people's eyes, and I feel privileged for being able to do so.
Chuck, have you read the second issue yet?
I started to, yeah.
And
So far, so good.
all right, cool. I'm so excited. I'm like a kid at Christmas. I just want him to read it already so I can get his opinion on it. I don't even want him to edit it first. He's the first one to read it. No one else has read it yet. And I'm like, come on, read it. Is it good? Do I have to go back to the drawing board? Please finish it.
Look at my baby. Look at my baby.
Yes.
My baby, it's pretty. All right.
The excitement is good because when he first brought Cat Dad and Supermom, he didn't have that level of excitement. He didn't have that level of excitement until that last one came in and he went, I nailed it. I fucking got it right here. And so, yeah. So that's good. That level of excitement is very good because it bodes well for you knowing the history.
All right, let's go around the room. Let's give some final thoughts. We're going to start with Randy, and I'm going to try to quiet down the little boy behind me. Talk about community, industry, and what you're working on next, Randy.
Community and industry. Well, it's always good to, if we're going to have a community, to help each other out, to try to lift each other up, not tear each other down. Try to keep your trolling. Actually, stop your trolling. That would be a great start to helping out this industry. It's to stop trying to tear everybody else down and try to build everybody else up. There's always a lot to be said about talking about the positive and not the negative. This industry is at a wonderful point in time, even though we are in a horrible spot. Again, depending upon your perspective, we could be at the crappiest of crappiest lows, or we could be staring at the door of opportunity that we need to kick open and blow this art form wide open out to the masses. There are so many ways of getting commercial and sequential art out to people that us as creative people just need to find it and get it out there. It means helping your retailer, getting people into the shops, getting rid of the stigmas that the retail shops have, getting rid of the stigmas that comics have, that Rob was talking about earlier, lifting this art form up to the entertainment industry that it needs to be. As far as finding me, you can find me at Facebook. I twit every once in a while. But not very often. I'm up there as Randy Zim. I'm on the Indie Volt podcast Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thursday mornings at 8 a.m. There's the Breakfast Buzz at 9 a.m. Sorry, I'm getting the times all mixed up. Eastern Standard Time. Other than that, you can find me at the Zim Geek channel here on YouTube. That's ZIMMGEEK. It's I put up instructional videos on how to cartoon and how easy it is to cartoon, because anybody can do this. You just need to do the work, do the research, and start drawing your own comics. So other than that, I also do historical pieces on comics history or stuff that interests me up there. There'll be new content up there shortly. In fact, I'm working on some stuff now. Other than that, you'll see me soon. I'm hoping to announce a crowdfunding book here pretty quick, but I'm not going to announce it until it's all done. So.
Thank you, Randy. I'm Brian K. Morris at Rising Tide Publications. See? Told you. Anyway, I can only echo what Randy said. And the thing is, the information for putting your comic book together, for making a business plan, for advancing whatever you want to do artistically, there's this website. Now, don't tell. Now, I'm going to be one of those gatekeepers. So don't tell anyone, okay? It's called Google. Just type in the question. Also, if you're on social media, get to know the people that you admire on there and start liking what they say. Start involving yourself in their conversation. Start treating them like real friends, because one day they may become a real friend. I got a lot of information from a lot of people who got to know me just as a person, not as a potential creator. And remember, we're not all competing against a fixed amount of money. There's not just 100 zero-sum piece of happiness or success in this business. But if we all do extraordinary work, the best work we're able to do with the best information we've got, we don't have to have a larger slice of the pie. We can grow the whole pie, and everyone gets a little bit more of it. Rising Tide Publications. I'm at risingtide.pub, where you can sign up for my monthly newsletter. It's pretty cool to read. Also, I'm on Facebook a lot. That's where I do most of my posting, although I'm on a lot of other social media, sometimes Twitter, like Randy. I also have a brand new, well, not a new one, but I'm finally paying attention to it, YouTube channel at Camouflage 61821, where we're going to start a series of instructional videos for comic creators and would-be novelists, short story creators, artists of all kinds, based on my experience. Also, every morning, while this crisis is going on, I have a show called Nevermind the Furthermore, where you are the guest star. You enter the conversation by giving me a comment. I read it on the air, and also I give you a chance to promote yourself. And we've got a pretty wide reach. We hope you'll join the conversation. Also, on Tuesday nights, we have an interview show. It's now an interview show dealing with creativity and the business behind it, called Clever Title Pending. And please tune in this Tuesday. We will be interviewing, I'm going to make sure I get the names right, Rick Bradley and Teresa Dunn. In the last year, they've both published for the very first time. We're going to talk to them about how they got to where they are and what they plan to do next. Please bring your questions to the panel. We would love to have you. Thank you very much for watching.
Hi, I'm Wendy Gale. You can find me on Facebook at Wendy Gale. I'm working on my first full-length book. I have a short story in the works, almost completed, for an anthology. I've been involved in one way or another in comics for the last probably 3 years. I've edited a few books. I hope to do some more of that. I did want to make one comment. We're talking about community and whatnot for this panel. As much as your community can uplift you and support you and help you by teaching and supporting, be careful when you're getting started. There's going to be a lot of people who will try to placate you because they think that if they can make you feel like you're doing something good, then maybe there's some benefit to them. So listen to the people you trust, and if they have constructive criticism, follow that. Don't believe just because you like your project that everyone else is going to, whether they say they do or not. And yeah, that's it.
And what's up? I'm Chuck Pino. I'm a freelance writer and editor. I have Chuck's Raw Reviews, and if you focus on the Chuck part of that, you're focusing on the wrong part. The important part of Chuck's Raw Reviews is Chuck talking about great books. And that's really what it's all been about for me. And so when we talk about industry and we talk about community, there are two parts, I believe, of a bigger whole. And so I think at the end of the day, at the end of all of this, whoever you believe, whoever side of it you believe, I think really the important part is there is a community, there is an industry, and you need to respect both. So thank you very much. I'm the writer of Essence House, of Welcome to the Void, of Belial, and I've edited a crap ton of books. And you know what? I hope to see you guys at the next con.
Jax is in the background going crazy. Jaxie, remember, shush. I don't care what you call it. I really don't. Call it an industry. Call it anything you want. Just don't call it something just for kids. Don't call it something that's not intellectually strong and can educate people and can inspire people. You know what? The rest of it's just words. It's just word games. Just respect the medium, and we'll never have a problem. If you ever tell us that comics aren't something that adults can read and it's not meant for all audiences, me and you are going to have a problem. So many creators to thank. I want to thank everyone on the panel today. They have been instrumental in my career. They've been instrumental to me and helping me become a better creator and a better person. So thank you. For those who weren't able to be on the panel today, I want to throw out some love to Travis Gibb, who's always had my back and has always been there to give me advice. I want to thank Josh Lyman for his amazing cover and being part of our Cat Dad family. Mike Seeley for giving me the advice I always need. He's a local guy. Couldn't make the show today, but much love to him. Can't wait till we can hang out again. Not at Sweet Tomato, sadly, but somewhere locally. He's part of that. Luke Stone for being a cheerleader behind the scenes and being there for me. Of course, my creative team, Chuck and Raheel, just amazing people. You guys have blown me away by us getting such now accolades for this book. I never gave up on it. I'm so happy I didn't because you fans have told me that's something you want to hear. I'm blown away by it. Thank you. And thank you to everyone who showed up today. You guys made this panel great. Varian, who's not here anymore, thank you. Meredith, who's not here anymore, thank you. And Eric, the Hudson Dinosaur Man, thank you for being part of this, making this day great. You guys are awesome. Stay creative. And remember that what you have to do in life is to be kind and share. So if you're a fan, show it